Excellent. So Morgan, thank you for joining the San Francisco Bay Area Moms this morning. And
Very much for having me.
yeah, we're here to talk about your allergy journey. And I understand that when you were 13, that's when you had your first allergic reaction to tree nuts. Do you remember that and what that was like and like what happened that first time?
Absolutely. I remember reading that for a lot of people, they remember the whole day when they have a medical emergency or something like this. For me, that's not the case. But I do remember three primary moments in that day. I remember when I had the allergen, which was a candied walnut in this case. I remember realizing, hey, something's wrong. I'm beginning to feel a little tightness in my chest and my throat's closing up. And then I remember actually being at the hospital. And of those three moments, obviously the hospital one stood out to me the most.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty traumatic, especially when you're 13 and you're kind of out of sorts. Were you at home or were you at school when it happened?
So it was actually, of all days, it was my mom's birthday.
Oh gosh.
And I know, quite a
Yeah.
unexpected surprise for her.
Yeah.
But what happened was we were going out and we just happened to stop at McDonald's, and she ended up getting a salad and happened to have some candied walnuts and was going, oh, well, everyone, why don't you go ahead and try some? Let's share. And I tried it. As I recall, I didn't enjoy it that much. So unfortunately, I went through the reaction for something I didn't that tasty. But that aside, I remember a few hours later being in my family's van, and then realizing, hey, I'm having like a real heavy weight right here on my chest, and I feel like right here is beginning to swell, like right in my throat.
Right.
At that point in time, my family took me right to the hospital. We were very fortunate that there was no traffic or anything. As soon as we got there, I was taken right to the back room, and lots of injections, lots of IVs. And I remember at the time I wasn't afraid. I figured I was in good hands. I'm safe. But I do remember afterwards that they told me, hey, if you'd been even 2 minutes later, that would have been beyond the point of no return. And I think that's terrifying to hear at any age.
Right. But especially when you're 13. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and then I understand you ended up becoming a patient of Dr. John's and the Columbia Allergy Clinic. So when you started that process and meeting him and figuring out what was going on, what was the treatment plan? Like how were you all going to handle, having this late allergy develop in your life?
Right. So prior to meeting with Dr. Jane at Columbia Asthma and Allergy, the plan had been just simple avoidance. Works well, but it's not at all ideal. First off, there's always the possibility of cross-contamination, even if it's accidental. If I consume any tree nut, doesn't matter if it was on purpose or an accident, it's still a tree nut.
Right.
And avoidance also is just something you always have to keep in the back of your mind. It does add a bit of stress to your mind, and especially at 13 when you're young, it's
right.
A little harrowing to think about that for the rest of my life. I always have to worry about whether I'm going to accidentally have tree nuts and where the nearest hospital is if that does happen.
Did it only affect you if you ingested the tree nut then? Or
yes,
yeah.
I would have some reaction if I was nearby, but I wouldn't go anaphylactic unless I actually ate it.
Unless you actually ate it. So correct. Avoidance didn't really work then.
It did not. I ended up, and at the time I was extremely sensitive, so cross-contamination was a lot
Yeah.
a lot more prominent,
Mhm.
and it was something to really worry about.
Yep.
I think I went to the hospital 3 or 4 times after that initial reaction in the span of a year.
Oh, wow. Wow. Um, because of another reaction. Was it the same level? I mean, the same as your first? It was pretty a pretty scary experience.
Uh, Thankfully, it never got that severe,
Oh, good.
but even so, just the fact that you have to go to the hospital and have
Mhm.
get plugged in,
Right.
it really is not a convenient thing to do.
Yeah. No. And so let me ask, how old are you now?
I am 26.
So 13 years ago. Yeah. I mean, things have changed. Um, I would guess there's a lot more awareness. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So you, I understand that the idea of oral immunotherapy came up as a way to kind of help you deal with this allergy. Why did you want to try it? And what were you hoping was going to happen, like once you started to get on the treatment?
Well, immunotherapy, as far as I understand, was a new method that had been developed by Dr. Jane. This particular method of desensitizing someone to multiple allergens hadn't been attempted before. Uh, there is, as a kid, I always loved space, and part of me was excited about the idea of, to quote Star Trek, going where no one's gone before and trying something entirely new. And especially if it's going to help other people in the end as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kids like myself who had allergies, and of course, if it's going to help me to live my life without having to constantly worry of, oh, am I going to have a reaction, or can I go to this friend's house and enjoy some muffins, even though they didn't exactly track what they put in there.
Mm-hmm.
It
So
offered a huge sense of relief.
yeah, well, what is the therapy like? Like what did it entail? Like how often? What was that like?
Uh, Initially, I was going in 2 to 3 times a week,
Okay.
and what would happen is I would go into the allergy clinic, and I would consume a jam that had a mixture of all 7 different types of tree nuts inside. So I would take one dose, and they would wait for about 30 to 45 minutes, which was enough time to determine if I would have an adverse reaction or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they set the dose so high that the dose I was actually taking home for every day for daily consumption for the immunotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
less than the dose I took in the office.
Okay.
So there was that little level of safety.
Right, right, because you were there around clinicians, doctors, yeah, professionals who could intervene immediately if something happened. So
Exactly.
how long did it take for this to become effective for you?
I want to say around 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
I do remember in between that time frame, there was a shift between you can't have anything that says may contain tree nuts to,
Mm.
okay, we'll go ahead and let you have some things that may contain
Right.
almonds or walnuts. And that sounds like such a small change, but you don't realize how widespread tree nuts are until
Mm-hmm.
you're very allergic to them.
Right, right. You're looking everywhere to see. And I know it's so prominent on labels now to say may have been, prepared in a factory, that had nuts or even egg or, lots of different allergens.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
really nice to see that today.
Yeah. Did you have to have an EpiPen with you at all times then, I imagine, as well?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I did have to use it once or twice as well.
Yeah. Yep. So how did the oral immunotherapy change your life?
So many ways. I think the most obvious way is saying that it allowed me to not have to worry about that, and being able to just casually enjoy desserts, or being able to go out in public and eat at a restaurant without having to worry about if they have tree nuts or not. Uh, I've personally been to uh, places like Thailand, where cashews and walnuts are very prominent in their cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'd be able to enjoy that if I didn't go through the immunotherapy.
Right. So is it safe to say you're cured, or like what's the prognosis?
Well, I don't want to give the impression that I go around having almond joys or
Right.
Nutter Butters or anything like that. But I would say for the most part, it's something I really don't even think about anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have Benadryl. I do carry some medicine around just in case a reaction happens. But for the most part, I would say I don't really have to think about it.
And so you mentioned travel. What other things have you been able to do now that I mean, it's still probably pretty, present in your mind, just, the awareness and kind of the physical reaction, kind of that memory, that muscle memory of it happening. But what other things have you been able to do in the time that you've taken the immunotherapy?
Absolutely. Well, I like to think I've been keeping pretty busy since then. Let's see, I ended up joining the military, and I will be getting out this month, actually.
Nice.
The end of this month is when I'm officially out of the U.S. Marine Corps.
Wonderful.
And I've also, I've also been able to deploy. I went to Kuwait as well as Honduras. I was able to travel through Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, all of Southeast Asia. I was able to get my graduate degree as well. And able to do that while having overcome that challenge of being very severely allergic to treatments.
Right. Because I mean, your life takes one path, even into childhood and into preteen, you're kind of living your life, and then you have this one episode and it just like totally changes things for you. So it's amazing that, a therapy, from Dr. Jane can, was able to do that for you and completely change your life. And, any plans that, you thought you would maybe have to hold back on, you didn't really have to do that. It's amazing.
Exactly. That's something that I thought would happen when I had the first reaction. I thought so many doors were going to be shut, but thankfully with the treatment from Dr. Jane, that just isn't the case.
Yeah.
The doors have been reopened.
That's awesome. Oh, that's great. And I bet, what about the rest of your family? Did they have any allergies like this? And how has it been for them? Because, it's happening to you, but, your family is living with it too and wanting to be so very, very careful.
Absolutely. It is one of those unfortunate things, just by nature of having to go to the hospital so much. It does have an effect on everyone else around you. And they're concerned about you. They want you to be well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the immunotherapy helped in the sense that they removed the stress from them as well. My mom and dad don't have to worry about, oh, do we have to take them to the hospital? And
right.
My sisters are happy that, okay, we have a weekend where we don't have to go to the hospital. This is great.
Well, and your poor mom, I mean, knowing that you're, and I can say this as a mom, and, we're interviewing for San Francisco Bay Area moms, but, being in Seattle or being deployed wherever you were, as a mom, not having to worry about it is so much. Like, I'm sure she was always thinking about it, but she knew it wasn't going to be like that first time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I actually, when I was in Vietnam, I ended up consuming by accident some hazelnuts. And she said, as soon as I heard that, I actually didn't worry about it because I knew that you had the medicine you needed, and the oral immunotherapy just helped.
Yeah, it did what it was supposed to do. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if there are kids out there, well, and I know there are kids out there dealing with allergies, whether it's tree nuts or, my daughter suffers from allergies as well. And she did the shot therapy and, had to go every week, every other week, once a month, for a couple of years. What advice would you give them, or what would you tell them to kind of help them, when they're dealing with these allergies?
First off, I would say it is a very big challenge to overcome, and it's okay to feel a little nervous at first. It's a very difficult thing that you're facing. But even with that in mind, do remember that it can be overcome. It isn't something it is going to change your life, but it doesn't have to limit your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. That's great. And that's a great place to end. Thank you, Morgan, so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Thanks.